Happy Saturday, or if you were in Australia, happy Sunday. We got Gareth here. We're going to be talking about an exciting project. Again, I've been looking just for DeFi has really let me down over the years. And so I've been looking for real assets, real world things that we as a community can put our money into. And so that's something we found here today. So we're going to be talking about this. Please say hello if you're here. Hit the like button. If you have questions as we're going, please ask all the questions. Would love to get that out and have a good discussion here today. Gareth, welcome to the channel. Let's start with a quick introduction. Tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about your journey. How did you get to the point where we're at today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, James, for having me on the show. As I just mentioned to you prior, it's a little bit early in the morning here in Auckland, New Zealand. So excuse me if I'm not as sharp as I normally am, but I'll warm up really quickly, I'm sure. I'm the CEO and founder of a blockchain company called Decom, which we started purpose-built application development on a blockchain over 2 years ago now. And we created a layer one infrastructure on which to build asset tokenization. And Savala, which we're discussing today, is a culmination of that effort and an application upon which we've designed a commodities platform to enable people to purchase real-world assets, but utilizing blockchain infrastructure as a backend. So I guess that my journey is, prior to doing all of that very exciting stuff, I've been in technology my entire life, studied electronic engineering, and a natural evolution of database technology is blockchain. And we kind of looked at the world as it stands, and you mentioned in your intro that DeFi has let you down to a large extent. I think some meme coins have let us down. Some pretenses have let us down. Some opportunities have shown themselves to be not opportunities, and it became somewhat frustrating to deal within that environment and look for something solid to invest into and have faith and have confidence in what was being said or what was being portrayed. So we wanted to put an infrastructure together that had meaning. It was built out of legal and compliance, and it just got regulation. It's embedded into the properties of the token itself, that this is an asset that you can acquire and hold and have and see and have provenance and look where it comes from. And funny enough, though, the journey was a lot longer than we would have liked. And,
it always is, right?
It is. A guy I work with, he says it's always going to be harder than you think, and I said I do know that, but it's we take things on with enthusiasm all the same. So we set out to achieve Savala. That's also nearly a year ago when we set out to achieve what we wanted to. And in principle, it's reasonably simple. We've got blockchain infrastructure that's really well built to handle asset tokenization and manage those transactions in a cost-effective manner, so that if you don't mind, I'll pop back into the reason that you need a decent blockchain to back an asset anyway. Is so cost predictability over time that affects your yield and performance of an asset, specifically when it's a real world token, is a really important factor. And so when you're changing ownership, let's say from myself to yourself, and I own an asset and I want to change the properties of ownership over to you, and a blockchain handles all that really efficiently. But if that transaction is massively complex, has a lot of data, which it will have because of the property ownership rights, that cost implication on some blockchains would be prohibitively high against the percentage yield that you might make as an interest bearing from that asset on that investment. So having a blockchain infrastructure that can handle cost over time is really important. And so we had all that in place, and all sounds fantastic. And then we got involved in building a Savala commodities platform, and we spent the better part of having a baby, 9 months, in developing all the legal and compliance, registering, building out the framework of what that looks like to maintain the properties of something being a commodity so that it can be owned. And so we've got to that point now and launched Savala. So Savala.global is the commodities platform, and effectively it's looks pretty straightforward and pretty simple, but in the back end is that divorce from the hopes and dreams rather into the reality and structure. And there's a proof of asset protocol that has the properties of the legal and the compliance and the ownership of the commodity and the structure of the commodity and how it needs to operate and function built into the issuance of the token. So I was thinking about it yesterday because I was anticipating this call. And there's asset-backed tokens. Somebody said the word asset-backed token. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. An asset-backed token seems to feel like there's an asset somewhere, and it's backing what the token is. This is a property of an asset. It is the asset itself, and that was the difficult part that we managed to achieve. So we arrived, I guess, today at a unique point in history. Whether it's the first, I'm not sure. I don't pretend to be as naive as to think that we're the only ones working on these kinds of things. But it certainly appears to be that there's a platform with a really good team with global presence, finding opportunities for individuals to invest into where you don't need to have hopes and dreams. You just got the reality, the structure, and all of that is presented to you. So if you jump onto the platform, the documentation's there, the contract's there, mining reports, geological reports, infrastructure about graphite. This is just one of the deals and opportunities that Savala is presenting at this point. And you can make a decision. And the decision's really straightforward. It's financial, and it's got time frame and the things that you would expect in solid investment infrastructure.
Okay.
So that was, I think it was a long answer to your short question.
Yes. Hey, you know what? That's good. I have a list of questions, and then I can kind of go, okay, answer that. So it makes my job easier. So appreciate it. We do have Sasha here as well. Sasha, do you want to give a quick introduction? Welcome to the James Pelton channel. But tell us just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into talking more about Savala.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I was one of the founders of Savala. By profession, a long-time investment banker for, I guess, over 20 years, mostly in the renewable and clean tech area, including strategic metals, battery metals. Ran a full-service investment dealer out of Toronto for many years that focused in that sector. And now mostly a principal investor, mostly in renewables and battery metals. So when Gareth and I met and started talking about various opportunities, this was a natural one, given the need for price discovery, for transparency, for all the benefits that the Savala platform brings, and also for the ability for battery metals miners to raise capital on a non-dilutive basis, which is also extremely attractive.
Okay, very good. Well, welcome. I'm excited to talk through this. I've got some of my own questions. Again, I come as a potential investor, and so it's like, okay, what would I want to know? And I assume those are the same questions my audience will have. Speaking of audience, we got Justin. Good to see you. John Cole, good to see you. He's helped put this together, so thank you, John. Appreciate it. Jonathan, good to see you out in Tennessee, Denver. RX Rob, always good to see all these friendly faces. Again, let me know if you guys have questions you want to ask, so I don't hog all of them. But good to see all of you. So we kind of already talked through this a little bit, but what if you were in an elevator, you're trapped with somebody, we'll say for 6 floors, okay? And they ask, hey, what's an elevator pitch for what you're doing with Savala? How do you kind of answer that? What is it that you're looking to accomplish?
Okay, you can have a crack at this, Sasha. I'll go next if you want to. I can go first.
Sure. Yeah. So the first thing, as you know, battery metals are really a very tight market, with China controlling almost the entire supply. In the case of graphite, China controls 95% of the global processed graphite market, which is extraordinary. And of course, that's why the U.S. has been scrambling and throwing money at potential processors to process, and even also capital into mining. So they're looking for non-Chinese supplies. So that's the first problem with most battery metals, in particular with graphite. Graphite, by the way, makes up almost half of a battery, electric vehicle battery and other batteries. And that is a real problem for them, because it's also forecasted to be the biggest growth of demand out of all the battery metals over the next 20, 30 years. So there's actually a physical graphite deficit right now. So how do you solve that? You've got to be able to raise capital on fair terms and access that capital. So what Savala does is, of course, allow the buyers to own direct ownership in a ton of graphite. It allows other investors to invest onto the platform when it begins trading, and also potentially even end users to hedge eventually as well. And that's why we think the pricing spreads are going to be quite tight, because if you're an actual off taker of the physical graphite and it's trading lower than that on the platform, you're probably going to buy that up because it will be a cheaper source. So it's really providing all of those things: price discovery, access to the metal, an ability for mines that are in production or immediate production to get capital on much more favorable terms, but at the same time giving a tremendous opportunity for the buyers to get a great base return with significant upside potential as well through the token.
Okay, awesome, very good. So there's gonna be a token. So when you go in to create an account, we'll talk about calls to action later. So right now you can buy graphite. Is there plans to add more materials here over time?
Yeah.
And just so you're starting with graphite, we're gonna go to other materials. And what will some of those other materials be?
So the main
Sure.
focus of Savala as a platform is a commodities platform. And at this go-to-market point that we're in now, it's focused on critical minerals in battery technology for electric vehicles. So lithium, cobalt, and graphite, which we've started with. So the purpose will be to have various asset classes, even within those nuances of battery and critical battery minerals, are different grades and different types and different functions, and at different points, and they'll have different cost structure. So there'll be various tokens that those assets are. And that platform is to effectively invest into the future that is sustainable, and to own a portion of that rather than, let's say, a portion of graphite. Graphite makes up a portion of our sustainable future, and to do so in a very clear and transparent method, and interact directly from source, and to choose what it is that you're investing into. So Sasha made the point of sustainability. So graphite also comes in synthetic forms, which is massively impactful on its own carbon footprint and how it gets created. This is natural graphite, and it's already of a very high grade, so you don't have to do a lot of processing to it. So it too has a very low carbon footprint. And these are the types of things that Savala as a platform wants to bring to market. So solid investment, so the numbers are good, right? So you're going to make a return. That's a fixed return. That's in the contract. It's obvious what it is that the return is. But it's more than that. It's about, is this good for the planet? Is this something that I believe in? Does it suit my worldview? Is it a sustainable element? That's what Savala really is an opportunity to invest into something that has, let's say, meaning beyond just the investment portion of it. So yeah, the plans are, to expand. And I think Sasha really undersold himself in his introduction of who he is and the impact that he's had in sustainability over time. And he sat on the board of various companies, large international businesses, that focus on sustainability, that focus on carbon credits, that focus on forestry and deforestation and minimizing the impact that has, that's focused on renewable energy. So there's a large pipeline of opportunity in various different minerals. We earmarked it to be electric vehicle battery technology. It's already gone beyond that. We started speaking to lots of different types of manufacturers. There's a mine out of Morocco that produces an element called antimony. And we've got that deal signed up and ready to be achieved. So it's a process of bringing this commodity and all of them linked to a sustainable outcome in sustainable methodology into an investment portfolio.
Okay, very good. So, and you kind of talked about this already, but when someone buys on here, so let's say someone buys 5 units of graphite, can you kind of talk about what happens behind the scenes? Do you take the money then and go out and buy it and you store it in a warehouse, or what's happening behind the scenes when somebody comes here and buys some graphite?
Well, there's 2 things that are occurring, and that is the completion of a cycle that is actually occurring in real terms. So it's a you and I entered into a contract, and that contract was to acquire graphite. That contract's actually embedded into this process. So there's a physical process and there's a digital process. And the physical process is the completion of a cycle. So there is a document in the document set. If you go look under the support page, and there's the mine documentation that you can go and read. And there's a mine in Sri Lanka, and that mine is a graphite producing entity, and it's got 100 and odd pages of all the information you could possibly think of to do with the specific graphite that you're buying. The physical contract is you are acquiring the right of ownership of that ton of graphite. And through that right of ownership process, you are giving the rights of production, refinement, and delivery to the mine. So you're entering into sort of a joint venture with them. It is not important whether or not you acquire this graphite. The mine's mining, it's producing, and it's going to be delivering. You can just interact with that process. You can help them scale it up. You can help them move into a larger production environment by participating with your own investment portfolio. So the physical elements in the background are then embedded into the issuance of the token, which then becomes the digital contract that's entered into. So there's the physical contracts, they're all there. There's an audit, there's an overview. When you and the terms are agreed upon, those properties get embedded into the token itself and is issued into the blockchain transaction, which actually is then using decentralized storage to store all those documentations and contracts into your agreement, which is uniquely yours and embedded on a blockchain transaction. And that becomes the digital contract as a smart contract executing and issuing that token.
Okay, awesome. No, that makes a lot of sense. Here, Sasha, we'll move you over to this one. There you go.
Perfect.
And then, so, okay, can you kind of help the audience? Again, we've kind of talked about this in bits and pieces, but just kind of want to compile it here into some QAs. But how should somebody think about, okay, well, how much money am I going to make? Is this going to be regular income? Is this something that I have to wait and sell? How should somebody think about how much they would make? Just talk about some of those details.
Absolutely. It is, I don't think it could be clearer. And it's segmented again into two very clear parts, and that is the owner of the token and their contractual agreement that's been entered into, that's on the platform, and what those properties of that token mean and the agreement with the mine in this particular case. And then there's the secondary marketplace, which would be more, let's say, speculative, depending on price of the graphite. So in the first instance, I go onto the Savala platform, I read through the contract, and it clearly states that I'm acquiring a ton of graphite. If I want 1 ton, if I want 10 tons, or 100 tons, whatever it might be, and it's costing me $850 per ton. The mine guarantees that they will sell that graphite at an average market price of $1,200. And at that average market price of $1,200, the entirety of that profit is for my account. So that is what, let's say, my fixed income expectations will be according to the contract I've entered into. Over and above that, if the market moves in any direction, the mine is also incentivized to sell the graphite for a higher price into the market if they can achieve it. And any price over $1,200, I get 40% of that price. Now, current pricing of graphite, if this particular grade, is in a slightly higher ballpark than the $1,200. And during the process of refinement and production and demand, that might go into $2,500 or $2,700 per ton. So a significant margin on the 40% of the amount above $1,200. So you could expect a return on investment of close to 100% if the market is favorable, but at a minimum, a $350 return on your $850. Now that process is physical, right? The mine has to produce this graphite. It's got to end up in someone's electric car battery at some point, and to get there, it needs to be utilized by a manufacturer. And so that process will be, anywhere from 12 to 24 months long. Now, at the end of that process, once all the tons of graphite are sold by Savala, all of the tokens get automatically redeemed, and everybody gets settled that $850 purchase price to $1,200, so that fixed margin plus the 40%, and everyone will get settled at that point in time. So that's a good way to put something into your portfolio. And I actually mentioned it to John Cole the other day. I was like, if I was sitting today, and I woke up very early this morning, so you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know what the Bitcoin price is right now. But when I worked it out, it was around about 64K. And I said, if you said to me that you can guarantee me Bitcoin will be 110,000 in 24 months, that's basically what this deal looks like. So I don't have to hope about it. I know that that's the fact, and that's just what I'm going to achieve. And I think a lot of people would take that opportunity. So this is what we're providing by investing into graphite. However, the secondary marketplace allows me an opportunity to on-sell my right of ownership to somebody else. So let's say the graphite market moves in a much more positive direction, and we know that the price of this graphite is going to be $2,000, $2,200, whatever. Then I know what my margin is, and you'll start to see trades occurring very close to the sale price. of what the graphite is. So that's the opportunity for price discovery that Sasha was talking about. And so that liquidity event will be within the next quarter, and we'll be aiming to provide the secondary marketplace amongst all of the assets that will be acquired on Savala, and you can buy and trade, sell, and acquire different assets on that secondary marketplace. But this opportunity to get in right at the front is a very unique deal. Like, it's from 850 to 1200 is a pretty good margin as a guarantee that you know that's what you're going to achieve. You just store it away there, and you're going to be in a pretty good nick in a couple of months' time. And the opportunity to have liquidity in the secondary marketplace makes it I think a very exciting, realistic opportunity for investment, right? So are you going to 1,000x your money? No, you're not. But you're going to get a 72% return? You are. So that's just a different way of looking at something a bit more solid.
Okay, very good. No, that makes a lot of sense. Can you talk about, again, you mentioned kind of some of this, but why the blockchain? Why involve the blockchain in this process? Again, I'm a crypto guy, and I see the blockchain and crypto in most cases is not being used for anything useful. And so again, I'm on the lookout for people who are actually using the blockchain to help and to provide business solutions and things like that. So can you talk about what the blockchain adds to this? Why not just do this traditionally?
Yeah, well, I mean, that is an obvious in its process when you jump onto Savala and you see the level of detail that's required in a contract in order to execute a sale. And in general terms, well, for one, there's no way to interact with these mines in a traditional sense. So for me and you, in fact, I sat with Sasha, last year, and I was like, hey, if I want to buy graphite now, how do I do it? And he's like, I don't know. You can't. So there's the fact that you actually can't. So you cannot go and buy it unless you're in this category of brokering, investment banking, high net worth person that happens to know this commodity industry and happens to have access to 10 or 20 million as a base number in order to get involved into this kind of investment. So there's in this particular field that we're talking about, the commodities we're involved in, is you just can't. What blockchain does is it completely removes all those obstacles, because you can embed the properties that allows that to happen into a blockchain transaction. You can embed that contract. You can embed the different properties of the commodity itself. You can embed the governance, the jurisdiction this is registered in, by the way, is Canada. So it's a really highly regulated area. It's not like Bahamas or something where, you could like, oh, I don't know if that's going to fly. This is a Canadian company, Canadian registered law that's being affected across the globe. Thirdly, it's the ability that you can now take that property of ownership, which is digital, and it can be quite anywhere. So I'm in New Zealand, Sasha's sitting in Switzerland today. I'm not sure where you are in the world, James, but I'm sure it's neither of those two places. And we're able to quickly interact by having removed those obstacles through the properties being held in the blockchain. So blockchain is a very useful tool, and that's what drew me to it right at the beginning as a database architecture to showcase provenance. Provenance is the ability to see clarity over time and where things came from, and keep those properties intact as they move between different points. And you're able to go back and say, well, this is an immutable record, and check it for yourself. And so that blockchain is a perfect environment to hold properties of ownership. Crypto as a currency is just the mechanism by which facilitates the transaction when we move those properties of ownership. So it's a really different thought concept. But the certificate of ownership that exists on a blockchain is why I think as a tool, as a database architecture, it's an incredibly useful asset.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, Sasha.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. So from the origin is extremely important on battery metals now for the end user, for the auto OEMs or the battery OEMs. They, one head of EVs for one of the major manufacturers said to us once, they never want to have a customer going into a dealer showroom and saying, that internal combustion engine car has just the same environmental footprint as that EV because of where the battery materials are coming from and where it's processed. So they really want to know, I'm sure you've probably seen these stories about, how much cobalt's in your phone and where's it coming from and who's mining it and are they ethical? And this is really important for graphite because it makes up 50% of the battery. And most of that graphite that comes out of China, again, 94% of processed graphite is treated with horrible chemicals, very bad environmentally, and the OEMs need an alternative. So if you're able to supply that and prove it, where it came from, that chain of custody, and that ESG footprint, it's extremely valuable. And I think eventually there'll be a dislocation of that price where that material trades at a significant premium to any other material in the market.
Okay,
love it. That's a really interesting point. I'm sorry if I'm jumping in to the conversation there, but as part of the business that I'm involved in, these are the things that we build: is supply chain and sustainability and ESG focused applications. And we're working with a really large company where they need to prove their carbon footprint. And they need to do so because there's taxation coming in the EU, and they're like, we don't know how to do it. We don't know how. Here's the data. Like, we've got scientists, but we're a company, and this company maybe is not in the best industry for trustworthiness. Let's call it that. And so, how do we prove it? Like, we can say it is, but no one's there to independently audit it. And even if they are, no one believes it. And so, this system of independently, what do we call it? A self-auditing system. He has the trust, right? You can go and see it for yourself. You don't need a third party to tell you what you're looking at. And again, that's where a blockchain ability to register that point in time is incredibly useful.
Okay, very good. Love that. Tim says, oops, missed the start. So the recording of this will be available right when we're done. So if you missed anything, it'll be up immediately at this same link. So you can kind of go back through. I'll try to get chapters into for the answers. Let's see. And yeah, audience, get your questions in. We say, what is the physical process of getting graphite into a usable state, from Denver Bill?
Well, this is definitely Sasha's question.
Yeah. So this is a bit of an anomaly. This graphite, the deal that Savala has with this producer is an extraordinarily high grade of graphite. And we've disclosed that it is in Sri Lanka, and shortly disclosed and you can see the details actually on the site. When you register, you can see the mine documentation. In there, you'll see an extremely high grade of 95% carbon plus. Just to put that in perspective, everywhere else in the world is significantly less than 10. And Sri Lanka used to supply the majority of the world's graphite up until the end of World War II. And so this company came in and really restarted that whole process and brought this stuff back into production. So the advantage there is that 95% can be sold immediately and directly as soon as it comes out of the ground. It's what's called direct ship. So it can be sold, as Gareth was saying earlier, the selling price right now that is around $1,400 a ton. So above that base price, that's already in your contract. So that's extremely attractive. And then from there, it's going to be processed to 99, and that goes up closer to $3,000 a ton price range, and that's where your upside's coming in on that additional return for the graphite. That market is the 99% market is usually used for what's called expandable graphite. It's an additive right now, for example, in building materials. So that's a significant fire retardant, significant legislation coming to expand that. However, right now there's a huge deficit in that market. So in October, China announced that they were banning all exports of graphite, which has caused a complete pandemonium in the market, and everybody trying to look for alternative supplies. So that's the 3,000 market. The stuff that's in batteries, that goes processed into what's called SPG, and that's called coated micronized spheronized graphite. That sells for about 10,000 a ton, but that takes huge amount of investment to get to. And for this contract, which is up to 11,000 tons with the company, that it'll be the first two, the 95 and the 99. But the material can be immediately shipped as soon as it's mined for that 95%, around $1,400 a ton.
Actually, I've got a question on that point there, Sasha. The refinement process, when we're moving it from, or when the mine does, from 95 to 99%, what's involved in that? What is that? It's an upgrade, I believe you called it. What does it do?
Yeah,
how does it work?
Good question. So again, because you're starting at a 95%, it's a massive advantage. So all it is very simple, what's called gravitational flotation separation processing. So it's literally floating it going down a spiral, so the gravity is pulling it down, and you're just purifying it a little bit higher. But it's just such a massive advantage to be starting with that 95% purity. Others have to take, most other mines have to take a 5% grade, which is little flecks and rocks, and they have to crush it, mill it, float it, and then they get to about an 80%, and then they have to go from there. This one, actually, you'll see right on the front page of Savala, you'll see that beautiful chunk of pure graphite. That is literally that graphite. That's the 95% pure out of the ground material. And it separates, it comes in veins that are up to 3 meters wide, and it separates almost instantly from the host rock. So there's really no mechanics required to get to that direct ship material, just hoisting it and bagging it. Some customers want different sizes, but that ends up getting a premium even to that base price. And that's easy to do. You just crush it to different size. But that's a very huge advantage of this particular deal. I'm going to say really frankly, it is unlikely that Savala as a platform is going to be able to find a deal with those characteristics again, because it's just such an anomaly, and for those costs and for those margins where the platform is able to pass on such a significant base upside return for the buyer.
Okay, good answer. I love this. I love the education. You guys didn't just come on for a pitch, but we're actually learning about something. This is amazing. Denver Bill, is there separate? I think he means, is there a separate process and a processing process like with rare earth? A separation process and a processing process like with rare earths?
Yeah, so like I was just saying, but great question. So rare earths, which we've financed a few large ones, one of the earlier large ones, and have financed a few companies in that space over my investment banking years, very complicated processing. Lithium from hard rock, spodumene as it's called, can also be very complicated. We actually financed a company in Canada, in Quebec, that had significant problems on the processing. So again, with this graphite, this particular one that the Savala contract has, it's starting at 95%, comes out at 95%, and that can be sold directly with zero processing. And then the higher price is the 99. And I should mention, so the total investment for that gravitational flotation processing that I had mentioned earlier, the total cost for that facility is only $700,000. That's under construction. That's going to be ready to get that higher margin, but very, very simple processing, but definitely not remotely as complicated as rare earths, where there's multiple minerals being separated and very, very difficult stuff. This is, as I say, direct ship material.
Okay, good answer and good questions, Denver Bill. So keep it up, man. You sound like you know what you're talking about. So, do you want to talk a little bit about the token and maybe a little bit about the roadmap and what's coming up? Will this token sale be available to purchase at some point? And tell us a little bit about what's coming up on the roadmap.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to click on the middle button at the top there, which is the RGO. So we've obviously used a slant on the RCO. It's an initial graphite offering in this particular case.
Love it.
And so there was a little dig at the industry, and that process is underway, right? So in fact, maybe 24 hours ago, we've concluded all of our testing, and I own graphite now, so does Sasha. Not that he needed any, but we both have some, as do people around us and what have you. So the remaining number you see there of units, 1,957, is the total number of graphite units that are assigned to this particular deal. So the 850 purchase price that you see there per unit, per ton, with the guarantee of 1,200 and the upside of 40% over 1,200. Those number of units is the number that you see there. That will continue until 1957 becomes zero, and that RGO expires, or as a time frame, I think it's mid-June that time expires. We understand it's a new market, so it might be a bit of marketing and like these types of shows, which is hugely beneficial for us to talk about this unique opportunity we're presenting. And that RGO will turn into the next button there, which is your primary sale. So these are orders that are being placed, and contracts are being signed, and blockchain transactions that are being effected to produce that order. And then all of those contracts, signs, and blockchain transactions will be transferred into the issuance of the token itself. So from a roadmap perspective, we're conducting this RGO. Then we'll produce that into a primary sale. At the same time, we're producing what won't be an IGO because it's antimony, so RAO. I don't think that'll have a nice same ring. We'll probably come up with a different name, but we'll have an opportunity for antimony as a metal, and other graphite or lithium or cobalt opportunities will come along. So we've got two very clear trains within our roadmap. The one is to present various opportunities that have got good investment properties and good upside, can really consolidate a portfolio. And the second is the production of the secondary marketplace so that you can start to trade those positions or trade out your right of ownership of those various assets. And we had first earmarked end of June, sort of beginning of July for that to take place, but it'll more than likely take place at the conclusion of this particular RGO and primary sale. So say July, August would be kind of the latest date where that will occur. And then we'll be on this platform right here. It will be like a really straightforward. We've tried to make it a really easy interface, not copy like a traditional crypto type thing, which is boring.
Yes.
And see, it's really about, it's visual, right? So it's what have I got here? What it is that I'm acquiring? What's it I'm trading? So visually be able to look through that process and change ownership between the different assets that you might own, or build yourself a portfolio and hold on to it, because those are both good things. But the roadmap's incredibly clear. It's to produce a very transparent path of what ownership looks like and how do I acquire the ownership of that over a period of time through the secondary marketplace. And then we'll also be enhancing the platform to showcase when the graphite's being produced. Where's it being produced from? Where's it being shipped to? How many units are being shipped? How much? It's going to be ultra clear. Like in this particular deal, all of the graphite that was assigned to various users, it's going to be in a pool. It's going to start to be shipped. Funds are going to come in. Those funds go into escrow. That's all going to be transparent. When the final lot of graphite is sold, all the escrow account will be at its highest and will be distributed to all the users, but live and updated for everybody to see at the same time on the platform. And that's how we'll treat all of the assets we'll deal with. And then separate to that, I guess, Sasha, we'll expand the different assets that are coming onto the platform. We're looking at building sort of sister companies because Savala's so Savala actually is a Sinhalese word, so the native language in Sri Lanka, and it means dig. So that's where the word comes from. And we kind of gave a nod to Sri Lanka, where the original deal and opportunity is in the word that's being used. But its purpose is sustainability, and sustainability specifically in electric vehicle battery technology. But because of this, we're speaking to people in granite and all sorts of other different metals. So we'll probably build up some sister companies that have got as well thought out brands behind them and all linked up into this aggregated platform of being able to trade all these different assets. So that's our very clear roadmap. Is we as a company are looking to produce these kinds of deals where you don't have to guess or hope, and it means something and it's clear. Then you don't have to trust us. You can see it for yourself.
Okay. Awesome. Love it. Yeah. And I do love the look of the platform. Again, that's one of the things that in crypto, it's just not user friendly. You go to Web 2.0 stuff and it's so easy to use. Then you come to crypto stuff and it's just a mess. So I appreciate that that you guys are doing it differently. So I'm a big fan. Let's see. Denver Bill, what are some of the countries where the buyers are located?
Yeah, so this actually leads up into a previous question that was asked around just authentication and what have you. So in that time where we just stated our baby of legals and compliance is the formulation and ability to present a commodity. Now, as you would know, being in the States, James, the SEC is only too happy to call something a security. And so that process of identifying what the commodity is was obviously incredibly important. And so the properties of a commodity, what it looks like, how it should operate, is a very open and well-regulated market across the globe and is open to pretty much everybody. So anyone, anywhere, we're able to go and buy a commodity by its definition. And so that is what we're producing on this platform, is anyone, anywhere, because of the properties that it holds of being a commodity. And those are very delicate within how you present the token or even the graphite or antimony, whatever going forward, what it can or can't be sold for, what the definition of a market is, what the end market price is, the time frame that it works in and operates, those give it a property of being a commodity. We can all go buy commodities. And so therefore, anybody in any country can acquire a commodity on the Savala platform. And some of the buyers so far have been, let's say, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, Africa, I think, definitely the US. So those are the KYCs at the moment is also is optional. It's not a prerequisite. And there might come the reason it's there is there might be specific commodities in specific jurisdictions that require KYC and AML. So that's all been built into the system.
Okay, but KYC is optional, you said.
Yeah, you don't have to complete the KYC to make the purchase, but it is there in the event that a specific commodity that's jurisdicted in a specific place requires it. And we, obviously thought ahead when producing it.
Okay, gotcha. Let's see, Denver Bill, the buyers, if the graphite that build the batteries.
Yeah, I think he meant, he was asking maybe on the buyers of the graphite itself. So I'm happy to answer that one. So enormous demand right now. So if you do a quick Google search, you'll see China banned exports in October. And as I was saying, 94% or so of processed graphite comes from there. And even the raw material is somewhere around 80. And so the demand is enormous. The biggest demand right now is for sure the U.S. You've seen all the gigafactories being built, and that is the biggest market, by the way. Graphite's had lots of other historic uses, from the steel industry, all the way to, as mentioned, expandable graphite for fire retardant materials. But the big demand and growth is obviously the battery side. So those are being built, as you know, all over the world. You've got major Korean players, US players, European players. The mine itself has had nonstop increase and very favorable indications on pricing above, I think, what was originally expected. The initial buyers will probably be Europe, a European buyer and US buyer, but also possibly an Indian one. The Indian demand is quite high, and of course the shipping is very small, very short distance, and the cost very small. I should mention all the costing, if we've referenced any, is always FOB from Colombo, Sri Lanka. So the mine doesn't take any shipping costs or risk, and hence there's none of that risk in the commodity. But yeah, the demand is quite global in nature now. But the particular mine has its primary customers will be US, Europe, and possibly India.
Okay, very good. Yeah, Denver, Bill, if you have any more questions, keep them coming. So good questions. Bit Kitty, good to see you. Welcome. Quentin came late. So we talked through all this. So again, the replay of this will be available right when we're done. I'll try to get in chapters, and you can go back. If you watch it later too, you can put it up on 2x speed, get through it a little faster. But we talked through a lot of that already. Awesome. Okay, so one question I had, what are the risks that you see potentially, and what are you doing to kind of mitigate those risks? Again, we understand we've been in investing long enough to know that there's never risk-free investments or anything like that. So what are some things that could go wrong, and what have you guys kind of done to mitigate some of those risks?
I can start on that one. I mean, the key one probably would be timeline. So it's the scale up and volume timeline. That's somewhat a function on how much is closed off on the Savala. Savala is going to allow to be distributed, really. So obviously, the higher the amount, the longer it is. But this is all going to be return blended, as well as I think Gareth was explaining earlier. So if you're selling the initial margin and the higher amount that's blended, and you can see in real time, we're going to be, as those sales happen, what the underlying value is per token, which I think is really interesting and has not been done in commodities before. So in my opinion, the key risk would really be timeline, but we're talking about slippage here of, if there is any. Again, this is planned, I think, pretty tightly, but if there is any, it's small amounts of time, weeks or months, not, years. But that I would see as the key risk. There is the pricing risk. Of course, as you know, the floor return guarantee is the 1,200. So that is what it is. But I would again point out that this is quite unique because this mine and this particular material has such a high margin. So it's not subject to any whims if there's any fluctuation or major fluctuation on the market price. The other reason that that's mitigated is that the end buyers, the final end buyers, are also contracting as this is closing. So you're not getting any of that risk. It'll be bookended basically. And I think that's also a phenomenal risk mitigation factor.
I think the main risk in producing a commodity to interact with is something that we do before presenting it. And that is to find opportunities that, as Sasha describes them, are either in production or in near production. So there's an extremely long, arduous, and expensive process that goes into getting to the point where this mine is already, I think, if I'm not mistaken, like 6 or 10 years worth of effort to get to this certification and geological reports and experimentation of different areas and where to mine. And that is a highly speculative area to be in, but that's not the kind of risk we want to pass on to investors. So it's near production or in production facilities. You could go there and look at it yourself. You can interact with the mine. And so we've taken that risk out by doing our homework and research, and also Sasha is incredibly well connected in that area. So we can identify those opportunities to present to the market without having to present that risk with it.
Okay, love it. Denver Bill has another good question. How would you describe the risk of China using their monopoly power to squeeze private companies and governments when new supply of battery components are brought to market?
Yeah, they've done it. So there was always a threat, and as it sounds like rare earths well, they did in rare earths also. It's a major. Let's be honest. It's pretty much a tool of warfare for them, and not to mention the end use of some of those materials are defense materials. But they've done it. Like in October, they effectively banned exports. That's not to say that they aren't coming out. They are. But every buyer is now asking for an alternative. I should mention that an incredibly experienced person is on the Savala advisory board. I think it's on the site, Benjamin Sarkozy. He is, and I think there'll be a video posted from him on the site or some channels in the next few days. He's probably one of the foremost experts of graphite in the entire world. He runs a European division of a company called GES, which is the largest distributor of graphite in Europe and also other parts of the world. Very, very big player, and extraordinarily knowledgeable about all facets of graphite, including pricing and supply, demand, etc. And his customer base, he'll tell you, and it'll be on the video, has all asked for alternative supplies from China now, and they don't want the risk again of potential disruptions or even just a threat of disruptions, because it's so hard to find an alternative because there's an actual physical graphite deficit this year. One of the things I didn't mention about graphite, not to complicate things too much, but it sounds like there's a bit of interest in this area, is there's two forms of graphite. One's synthetic, which is a petroleum production byproduct, so extremely poor, obviously, environmentally, and the other is natural. And getting a new natural mine on stream, takes 5, 6, 7 years, as Gareth was saying, if everything goes well and if you had limitless capital. So there's a real scramble to get the material. And again, why Savala is in such a fortunate position to have this agreement signed for up to 11,000 tons potentially of this unique high grade material as well. But just to get a supply is virtually impossible right now. Very, very difficult.
Okay, good answer. We got Dane here. Good to see you, brother. Hey, James the Wise. I like that name. We'll stick with that. That's a better nickname than a lot of them that I've gotten. So, well, I think that's all the questions I have. If people have more questions or they just want more information, there's things we didn't touch on that they want to get answers to, what's the best way for them to kind of jump into the community to get some questions answered?
So there's communities that are being set up through our good friend Jonathan, and so there's a Discord community, and I believe it's being set up or had been over the last week, and the links will be all available on the website, or I think you might be posting them afterwards, James, yourself. You can get in touch with us through the website and the support and contacts, as well as on the website itself. Hosts quite a lot of information around what Savala is and what we're trying to achieve, and also look out for the videos that we'll be posting with information about graphite and who the people are. And if you click on the About page there's a bit on the advisory board and who the people are, and if you scroll a little bit down there, then we've also got quite a big announcement coming up in the next 2 weeks, hopefully, with a third advisor, which is a really prominent person in the industry. So we'll have loads of channels and socials to interact with, and I believe there's a X account and a LinkedIn. We're posting information from that too. So we're trying to present ourselves professionally, from professional people, and providing a professional opportunity.
Okay, love it. So yes, calls to action. I'm a marketing guy, so I always have to there's always a purpose in a video. We're not just here to only inform. But I'm going to start the easiest thing that you can do. Go hop on their Twitter and give them a follow. Okay, that helps just kind of grow the community. If you're not going to do anything else, you say, this isn't for me, at least go follow them on Twitter. If you have additional questions or you just want to talk through it, you can on the website here on the contact, they have their emails. So go shoot them an email. Just say hello. I really like this project. Again, I have been discouraged at the state of blockchain and just the way it's been used for, meme tokens drive me bonkers. People ask me all the time, what meme tokens are you in? I say, I'm not in any. Okay. That's not what I think blockchain should be used for. But I love that we've got a doxed team here, actual business providing actual service and solution to the world that are using blockchain to help. There's an environmental aspect to it too. So they're helping the world as they're doing it, not just a money grab. So there's a lot about this that I really love. So go hop in. And then if you're like, hey, I want to get involved financially, you can go and buy some graphite here. This is available right now. There's 1,957 available, $850 US. You can pay with fiat, which is another thing that I really like. Because if you're not super familiar, you're like, I don't know MetaMask very well. You can get in with fiat, or there is a cryptocurrency option, which is good. Since we're a crypto project, that's good. So a lot about this that I like. I want to thank the audience. Thank you guys. Again, I am so thankful that I have projects like this that are reaching out and asking, hey, can we present to you and to your audience? And what a blessing for me. So thank you, audience. The reason I can do this is because you guys watch. So really appreciate that. And Gareth and Sasha, thank you so much for building something in the space. Thank you for not being scammers. Thank you for not making a meme token. Really appreciate that. And I look forward to, I think I'll probably have you guys back. We'll keep my audience updated on how this is going as time goes on. But really appreciate you coming on here today and presenting to my audience. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. God bless you all. Good luck with your investing. Go buy some graphite. Appreciate you guys and have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you later.